I know most of you are familiar with the products that we have in the castle, but if you're not familiar, we do have the Lough Mask gin and we do have the Lough Mask vodka. We also incorporate the gin into our gin tasting that we do at Ashford Castle as well. So this is probably the most local, or is the most local products that we have in the bar. And as you guys all know, that's something that we have a big focus on at the moment with our sustainability initiatives, and guests more than ever, they want local products. So it's really great for you guys today to have better knowledge of the products that we have from Lough Mask Distillery, but also to have knowledge of the distillery itself, that it can be a talking point with guests. I know all of you, with your interactions, you'll have guests that will say, oh, we're going touring today, we're going to go for a drive and see the countryside, and it's a great spot to recommend guests to come to and visit while they're with us on that as well. John, will you
all very, very welcome. And it's 3 products we're distilling here at the minute: whiskey, vodka, and gin. The whiskey, we started producing whiskey just before lockdown, but lockdown really killed us because of the geographical location of the distillery, the 10 kilometre radius. We just couldn't get staff out here, so we put whiskey into cask with the intention of having it for sale now, but it didn't happen. So we're literally, since January, we've been distilling whiskey at full tilt, and our whiskey won't be available for about 3 years, but we will have a very, very special whiskey. Our 3 products all use the lake water. So the water is brought in from the lake, it's distilled, it's passed through filters here. So in the 3 processes, the vodka, gin, and the whiskey, it's using the water from the lake. The gin then will use 3 botanicals. I'll show you There's 3 botanicals that grow locally down at the lake. So we have fuchsia, elderflower, and honeysuckle. So next month, June, July, we'll pick these. We have to freeze them to keep them for the year, because they're the local botanicals. That's what makes the gin so unique. So you'll get to see these in a little while. So does anyone know anything about the distillation process?
Yes.
Okay. Have you been to the distilleries before, or you have?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, the process that we use here for our whiskey production, we start with beer. We brew a beer. We distill that twice, and then that gives us a whiskey. It takes us 3 years from brew date to actually getting our whiskey out of the cask. So if you want to come over here, you might get a look over here. So the whiskey starts off as a barley. We buy it in malted. We buy it in from a company in Cork. So barley comes in. It comes in 25 kg bags. That's mixed with hot water and yeast, and that gives us beer. The beer takes 3 days to produce. It's transferred then from a mash tun, which is this guy here. So basically the yeast is fed in, the malted barley and hot water is fed in here. It's mixed around, it's left in there for about an hour. It's like an oaty mixture, it's like porridge. Left in there for an hour, transferred then into the fermenter, which is this guy here. You're going to see all of this when you actually go into the main distillery itself. This is a 1,000 litre fermenter, so beer goes in here, left here for 3 days. It's then transferred into the still here. These are Albanic potbelly stills, handmade in Portugal, completely made from copper. So what we do here is we will transfer half of the fermenter, which is 500 litres, into this still. It leaves as a beer at 9%, is transferred in here, will leave here at 30%, redistilled again in here at 30%, and then we'll end up with whiskey at 60%. But how how the beer is turned from a beer into a clear spirit. Basically, there's a heat source here which is gas, and we have a hot water boiler supply as well. This is on a timer for 2 hours prior to production. So it's heated to 50 degrees prior to us coming into the distillery. The gas source is heated then underneath. It'll take about 2 hours for this to boil. So once it gets to about 80 degrees, the alcohol will start to evaporate. So it'll pass up here through the head, down along the arm, and into a condenser. The condenser has cold water inside it. So as soon as the vapor hits the cold water, it'll come out here in parrot's beak, and it'll come out as our first stage of whiskey. So again, all of this liquid is collected, put into one vessel, then redistilled again. So it will take us, it takes 2 days to empty one of these, and it takes 4 of these to get 200 litres, which is one cask. So it's quite a slow process. So at the moment, we're distilling every single day, but we will only get a yield of about 2.5 casks per month. So that's the whiskey. You're going to get to see all of this once we go into the actual distillery itself. The gin and vodka are distilled the exact same way, except we don't use beer for gin or vodka. We use ethanol and distilled water, again from the lake. The vodka is distilled 3 times. The gin is distilled twice, but the gin is mixed with botanicals. It's macerated for 24 hours prior to us lighting the stills. So you're going to see all the botanicals in the room outside. So has anyone any questions there about the distillation process?
Which type of wood do you use to age your whiskey?
Sorry?
Which type of wood do you use to age?
Well, at the minute it's all bourbon barrels, but we're in the process of buying Oloroso, Madeira, possibly some wine casks as well.
Okay.
We have a couple of different sources, but there is a cooperage in Foxford, so we're probably going to buy there for the minute. But as I said, we've only really started distilling since January again, so we just want to get a baseline whiskey, as in exactly the same for now. We will probably start blending then once we have enough whiskey, so that's where the Madeira, the Oloroso, all of that will come in. We definitely will only leave in barrel the first batch for 3 years, but again, once that's done, we can leave it 10 years after that. So we have, I'll be able to show you some whiskey later that's about six months away from being fully developed. It's privately owned, so I can't actually taste it, but you can see the difference between what goes into the barrel and what it looks like 3 years later. So once it's in the barrel, it just takes on that unique flavour from the charring. You get totally different colour and a totally different taste. But again, we can get you to taste the new make. You'll taste what it's like before it goes into the barrel. I'll be able to show you what it looks like after it comes out of the barrel. So that's it. You're going to see the whole process in there once we go in. Now, unfortunately, we distilled whiskey this morning, and we're just transferred into the tank again. We've distilled on, but we probably won't see whiskey for 2 hours. But we have vodka distilling at the minute. But we'll go through the whole process. So, any other questions? Anyone? Okay, so no. So we're going to take you into this area here before we go to the distillery. What we have here are some of the raw ingredients. We have the botanicals, we have malt barley, so you get to see it, taste it, smell it. Temperature drop immediately.
No time to wait, guys.
I'll go through every single one of them with you as well. So
Straight in.
we'll do the beer first. The first three that are here, this is all that we use in beer. So basically you have barley, you have malted barley, and you have yeast. So to start our beer, again, it's 8 25 kgs bags of this, 1,000 litres of water. That's heated to about 80 degrees, and then we leave it. I'll show you the process of how we cool it. We cool it really fast, and then it goes straight from there into a fermenter. At the right temperature, we can pitch our yeast, and within 3 days, we have beer, which is the base of our whiskey. So that's how it starts. Relatively cheap to produce, but it's so time consuming. We can turn out whiskey or vodka in 2 days, 3 years for this. That's it. If anyone wants to come around and have a look.
Which type of yeast do you use?
It's just distiller's yeast.
Okay.
Yeah, it's nothing special, just plain distiller's yeast. So the next from here down then is everything that goes into our gin. Everything except the local botanicals, as I said, they're frozen, so we can show you them in a few minutes. But I suppose the most important botanical in gin is juniper berries. So you want to smell them, pass them around and smell them. If it doesn't have juniper berries, it can't be classed as a gin. It can be just classed as a white spirit with botanicals in it, but it needs juniper berries to be classed as a gin. Our gin is heavily led with juniper berries, and then with 2 other key ingredients, which is coriander and cardamom. 90% of the gins in the world will have those 3 botanicals in it. They'll have them in at different ratios. So they would give quite a bit of spice. To cut back on some of that spice, we add some dehydrated lemon.
And do you dehydrate the lemon here?
No, we buy it in. Yeah.
You get both the barley and the malted barley.
It's all from Cork.
Yeah.
And we only use the one company because we just don't want to deviate from
the source.
So while you're passing that around, there's a other spice that we use as well, along with cardamom and cinnamon. This is called Grains of Paradise. Now there's not a very strong nose from this, but you can taste this if you wish. It is quite spicy. You want to taste it? 1 or 2 will do. It'll hit you in a few minutes, yeah.
And do you put directly in the batch or in the basket? For the,
Sorry?
For the botanicals, do you put it in a basket or directly in the batch?
No, what we do is we mix whatever ratio that we're distilling. If it's, say, it's 100 litres, we'll mix 50 litres of ethanol, 50 litres of distilled water. We'll add that to the still, then we add the botanicals in. We give it a good stir, put the lid back on, and leave it there for 24 hours. And then in the morning, just come in, light the still, and within an hour we start getting gin. Yeah.
So you don't use basket or?
No.
The botanicals are the last.
Very similar to Szechuan.
Yeah. So that's where the spice comes from. It comes from cardamom, coriander, and the Grains of Paradise. Then, as I said, the lemon peel will give it that citrusy kick, but to bring it back down to earth, we put in a lot of root. So you will have licorice. 3 roots. That's forest root. And angelica.
Are all of these distilled together? Do you vaporize any of them?
No, but all macerated.
Okay.
What we do is we take whatever ratio that we're doing. If it's 100 litres, 70 litres, it's 50-50 raw alcohol to distilled water.
Yeah.
The botanicals then are added to whatever, depending on the size of the mix. We have a set recipe that is a particular ratio to whatever litre it is. It goes in 24 hours beforehand, so we mix it the day before, give it a good stir, leave the botanicals do the job, the flavours go straight into the liquid. Follow morning in, and then just light the still, within an hour we start getting gin. It'll come out at 70% first,
Yeah.
and then by the time it gets down to the very end, it could be down to 7 or 8, but the added is about 60%. We'll go through all that more inside. So there are our mainline botanicals. The 3 that are local to the area, you'll see when we get inside, they're actually frozen, but these are all added the day before. The local ones which are frozen, they're added just before we light the still, and I'll show you that once we're in the room. But just to your left here, this was an illegal setup or distillery in over 200 years ago. But again, they're using the exact same practice that we use today. This was or is copper, so this was a copper still. The arm that you're seeing in the picture inside, that's the arm there. That's their condenser, which was an old barrel, but it had one of these inside, which was a worm. So basically, they did the exact same thing as us. The direct heat source was turf. So they would light this, heat it up, and then collect their poaching then. But it was totally illegal. And behind you then at this picture here, this we are told was a distillery tour over 200 years ago as well. So they found an illegal distillery. This guy here is distilling, and these are sitting back drinking the fruits of his trade. So totally illegal as well. But they didn't separate the good alcohol from the bad alcohol, and you'd often hear stories of people being blind drunk, and they literally were, because they didn't extract the methanol. It just everything was, they drank. There's stories of people being asleep for 3 days, and some of them were actually put into coffins. They thought that they were dead, but the strength of the alcohol was 80%, so just didn't know what they were doing. So, but now we're totally legal, and it's a totally different. It's the same process, but you know it's done under proper supervision. So, has anyone any questions about
Yes,
the botanicals? Yeah.
When you make the whiskey, what are you doing after with like the most barrel and the yeast you have on the bottom?
That's taken away. It's taken away by local farmers, and it's used for feed.
Yeah.
So you have to dispose of it correctly, but we keep herd numbers and we know exactly where it goes. So, but you do have to dispose of it correctly. So, yeah, there's we put 7 to 8 bags in per brew. We usually get the exact same volume out, except it's heavier. It's left outside here, and local farmers come up to take it away. So it's used to feed cattle, horses, and sheep. Any other questions?
Recommending any local beef as well, you can see that do effect with our grains.
So, if there's no other questions, we'll move into the main distillery room.
Guys, this is a walk-in distillery, so just try and don't touch any bit of exchanges. There's always one you do, like don't touch the red button.
We didn't brew today. We'll be brewing tomorrow. So this is the mash tun. Malted barley is added in here. There's a screw inside here that turns and brings the grain up, drops into the mash tun here. Hot water is added, 1,000 litres of hot water to approximately 8 25 kg bags of malted barley. It's mixed up in here. Again, it'll end up like a porridgey kind of a substance. It's in here. Left sit for an hour. Let sit for an hour, and the hot water will extract the starches from the barley. Once it's in here an hour, we'll hook up a pipe here and pump, and we'll transfer to one of the 4 fermenters, whichever one we're using at the time. But as I said, in here is at 80 degrees, but to pitch yeast, for yeast to work, it has to be much cooler. So you have to cool it down really fast during the transfer. So it ends up going through heat exchanger. So this would be used in most dairy manufacture. It's used in all beer manufacture. So basically, it's just a series of plates. On one side you'll have the liquid, the hot wort, and on the other side you'll have cold water. The 2 liquids never touch, but the cold water will just cool the beer down to the exact temperature that we need in here. And once it's in here, we'll pitch a kg of yeast, mix it around, and straight away it will start reacting. And within 3 days we have a beer that's ready to distill into whiskey. We don't brew beer here to make beer. If it was a brewery, we could carbonate that, leave it in a tank longer, and we have a beer that's ready to sell. We only need a baseline spirit that we can distill, so 3 days is enough for us. It's like a blonde beer, like a wheat beer. It's about 9%. But yeah, I can bring you up here now. Just be careful going up the steps. So in this tank here, if you want to come up, beer in there, it's pretty functional. That's the yeast to its work. So. When you're brewing in the morning, it's a lovely, holy mellow smell. This is the first distill here. So, how long is it on in? Okay. So you can taste that there. That's being distilled at the minute. It's the first distill, so it's pretty strong. It'll go through again, and taste there if you wish. Just no, just hit. It's very, very strong at the minute.
Should be very flammable.
It clean your body.
That should be nice.
Yeah, that's only one distill. When it goes through a second time, it'll be totally different. You'll taste the vodka inside anyway. So.
I love the way the
I would say it's about 60% now. 70. Yeah, fill up the bottle, come on.
Well, I have you here. The guys have just transferred from fermenter 2 in here, so the beer has just gone in here now. So once this beer boils up, again, it's going to come up here, go along the arm as a vapor. Inside here is cold water. Hit here, it'll come out here as a clear. It leaves there as a beer. It'll come out here the exact same colour as a vodka. It'll come out as a clear spirit. The first distillation will be about 30%, so it leaves there at 9%, passes through this, comes out at 30%. We'll collect all that liquid, move it into the bond room in here, into another vessel. When we have enough, we will go back in here again, redistill, and we'll end up with a whiskey at 60%. Then that whiskey will go straight into cask. So that's where the double distillation comes from. So we're just using this one at the minute. We have been shipped from Portugal again. We have a boiler coming the week after next. So there's going to be a huge big fluid heater here, or boiler. Another one of these stills will be here, and this still will move over here. This still will be just doing vodka and gin. These two bigger stills will be just doing whiskey 24/7. So one will do the first distillation, and the one that will be placed here will be doing the second distillation. So we're hopefully bumping up our whiskey production on a big scale. So what we might do now is just move into this bonded area here. Take a group picture afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely.
Some people working.
So this is what we call a bonded area. It means that we can only keep a certain level of alcohol in here duty free. So we only have X amount of barrels here at the minute. Once we exceed a certain amount, we have to move it to a bigger bonded warehouse. A few of these were filled pre-lockdown, but all these guys here we've just filled since January, since we got back into production. As I said, it takes 4 full brews to fill one of these. So 4 full brews is 8 distills. It's nearly 2 weeks' work to fill one of these. So 2.5 of these at the minute is our yield. Once we get up to the 2 bigger stills, we hope to double that. So we hope to be filling 4 to 5 of these per month. Yeah. Each one of these will yield over 400 bottles of whiskey. So.
What's in the baby barrels?
This was a beer that came from Measc brewery. They had a batch of beer that I think was about to go off, but it's still perfect for distilling, so we distilled it for them. So that's up there. That one in the corner, slightly bigger than these guys. This is a sherry cask. This is privately owned. It's about 3 months away from maturity. And I have a sample of that to show you inside. It's stunning whiskey. He's not, normally the whiskey will go in here at 60%, and what we would do then afterwards is empty the barrel, and we would add distilled water to cut it back to 40, 41, 42%, whatever we want. He's not going to, he's going to keep his whiskey at 60%, which is called cask strength. So you've probably seen Redbreast cask strength. Yeah. So that's what cask strength is. So I'll just start here. The lads are distilling vodka today, but we will be distilling gin tomorrow. So once we distill it, it goes in here, and that's called uncut gin. So it's distilled, goes in here, it's probably 60%. When we're ready to package, we will transfer from here into here, add distilled water, and we cut our gin back to 43%, which is what you serve in the bar. So we add the distilled water, that's the water again from the lake, passes through those series of filters, add it to this, and yeah, that's your vodka ready to package. Sorry, gin. This is the same, it's just vodka. So this is our house vodka. We're experimenting with, which is 42%. We're experimenting also with, this is triple distilled. Down here, we have a double distilled vodka, which is a lower ABV.
which will be, because it's lower ABV, we'll pay less taxes, less duties on it, so we'll probably be able to sell it a bit cheaper than our main brands, but we're aiming at a different market. So these guys here, any of the blue ones, these will hold the first distillation of whiskey. These are 200 litres, and the first distillation is always called low wines. So it goes from a beer to a low wine, and then it will go from a low wine to this guy here, which is called new make, and that's the whiskey ready to go into the barrel. Once we have 2 of these filled, that's enough to fill the 500 litre still. We redistill that again, and then it goes into this guy here. This is your whiskey before it goes to cask. So this is 1,000 litre IBC. Each line represents 200 litres, and each 200 litres represents a cask. So when this guy is full, we have five casks. That's the ethanol that's used for. That's the ethanol that we use for gin and vodka. That's bought in and it's mixed with the water from the lake. Whiskey is made from beer, so that's the only difference. These are all bourbon casks. I know someone asked the question earlier. These are bourbon at the minute. We've more on order. We've also ordered some Madeira, some Oloroso, and some wine casks. So we will keep filling bourbon until we have enough bourbon. Then we will transfer from bourbon into sherry, and then we may, we'll mix them up. We might mix some wine with the sherry, mix some sherry with the bourbon. So we'll play around with it, and then we'll probably have releases, low volume releases of special blends or whatever. So, but the trick is to get the main line whiskey correct first. And everything is done by hand here as well. Even the rushes that you see there, that's what the guys use to. If we have a leak in a barrel, that's how it's fixed. It's the rushes. They'll be hammered in here. Usually the leaks are along here, so the rush will be actually hammered in there. That's how it's sealed. So everything is old school. There's no mass production here. Everything is done. Every single thing is done by hand. Even down to, I will show you the packaging room. All the labelling, everything is done by hand. Any questions here?
Your own standard whiskey, is it going to be 3 years, or are you going to age?
3 years.
It
has to be true. It has to be 3 years to be classed as an Irish whiskey. Yeah. So we need to get a whiskey out to the market. So the first batch will be 3 years. We will probably hold back once we have enough produced. Hold back some for 5, 12 years, and then start blending as well. So
yeah.
So we'll move. I just want to show you the botanicals, the local botanicals, because that's unique to the Lough Mask gin. So
Everybody want to get a little nose of the cask whiskey?
You might get drunk off the fumes itself, or just pass out.
Go from that side. From that side.
Get your step.
Step all into it.
Oh, my leg. He's about to dive in.
just while we're passing, that's 30, is it? So that's, the guys just mix botanicals. You can smell them there. That's ready for a 60 litre gin distilled tomorrow. So that will go in into 30 litres of ethanol, 30 litres of 30 litres of ethanol, 30 litres of water, and then it'll be stirred around as well. So there, that's botanicals, we store bigger bags inside. I'm just going to bring you in here, the barley is in here and the local botanicals. So basically, as I said, everything is done by hand. It's a very, very small bottling line. We just moved it because the guys were varnishing that table, but it's usually over here. Bottles will be over here. 4 bottles at a time. There's someone else at the end of the line putting on the labels. So there's 3 different labels per bottle, and then someone boxing it and down into the bonded room and then shipped out. So yeah, literally done by hand. Behind you is the barley as it comes in. As I said, it comes in for a company in Cork. So each brew is 8 bags of barley to the 1,000 litres. Our botanicals, the local ones are kept here. I don't know if there's anyone from the area, they'll recognise this. This is fuchsia. Yeah.
You're not from the area.
Yeah, but I know my botanicals.
That's honeysuckle.
Honeysuckle.
Yeah.
Smell.
Elderflower.
Elderflower, yeah. So they're, in the next month or two, we'll be out picking. Yeah.
I love elderflower.
So this is the honeysuckle.
That's the elderflower.
How much you pay, like,
So honeysuckle, elder.
€1,000 pound.
This is the honeysuckle.
The honeysuckle is so nice. Yeah.
40 bags. We would recommend the plainest tonic water possible because like, I don't know, you stock poachers, do you?
No, we use the fever tree.
Fever tree, yeah. I think poachers, because it's an Irish tonic water, is, I think it's the best tonic water, but the plain, they have a really plain, just simple classic tonic water. It's perfect with this gin. So it doesn't need fancy tonic waters with elderflower or with any other, but there's enough botanicals in it to speak for itself. So. Yeah, so that's basically it. These are boxes. So if you want to go in, we can taste some gin, some vodka.
Best part.